Well,
Your
like
Alzheimer's.
Mary Chase, he forgets your name if it was on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I will remind you that the main point of the name things is so when you want to be recognized to speak, put it upright.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
So
Yeah, I forgot
that way I
That's
can
our new
kind of
thing.
more easily. see.
Oh,
Um,
must have missed
That's
that
really the
recorded
main-
part of the meeting.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so, and I will, we have people online.
We just have one community member on.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty, well, let's get started, and if somebody was bad, I could kind of keep the ear open on the door in case somebody's out there wanting to come in. I don't know if they're. or not. So welcome, it's great to see you all again. I hope you had a good summer and it's time to get serious again. Okay, so I guess I will turn things over to Julia.
Sounds great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Willow Hamilton. I am the City of Eugene staff representative for this meeting. Before the chairs convene the meeting, I have a few reminders and introductory words. I want to begin by acknowledging that tonight's meeting is being held on Kalapuya Alihi, the traditional homelands of the Kalapuya people, whom continue to make contributions in their communities here and across Oregon, the land we now refer to as Oregon. The purpose of the Active Transportation Committee is to advise the City of Eugene staff and community organizations and partners on the implementation of Eugene's pedestrian and bicycle strategic plan, to represent community and constituent interests in transportation planning decisions, and to provide feedback to staff on projects relating to walking and biking. Eugene City staff will consider recommendations from the ATC along with input from other members of the public during the decision-making processes. Please keep in mind that this meeting is being both recorded and live streamed to YouTube, meaning that it can be viewed on the City of Eugene Transportation Planning YouTube channel, both right now and in the future. All verbal and written commentary will be held in the public record. Today's meeting begins with a 15-minute public comment period. The public comment period is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the Active Transportation Committee on transportation-related issues. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please make sure to give your name, city of residence, and if you're from Eugene, your ward or general neighborhood. Thank you. We'll begin with those joining us online. So if there's anybody online who wants to speak, you can use the raise hand feature and I'll kind of bring you over for public comment. So it looks like we've got 2 folks who would like to give public comment. So I'll start with Dan Wilson and then we'll go to Sharon. So Dan, I'm going to allow you to talk here. So you should be able to unmute yourself.
Great. Thanks very much. Yeah, hi, I'm Dan Wilson. I'm in Ward 2. And I guess I have a comment and a question. So I live on Fox Hollow Road, which I think is like a local collector street. Ever since I've lived here, it has been 35 miles an hour speed limit. And recently it changed to 25 miles an hour, which is amazing. I'm so happy about this because my main concern living here is that my kids can't cross the street. So my question to staff is, how did this happen? And how can I help this happen in other places? Thanks.
Yeah.
Logan, you know.
So in the state of Oregon, speed limits are regulated by ODOT. So if we want to, there's basically 2 types of speed limits. There are statutory speed limits, which you can kind of think of as default speed limits based on like certain attributes of the roadway. And then there are designated speed limits. So if a location doesn't have kind of a default statutory speed limit, it has to have a designated speed limit, which is the case with Fox Hollow. And so whenever we want to change a designated speed limit, we have to put in a request with ODOT to have them perform a speed zone investigation to see whether a different speed limit would be appropriate. In this case, we did that and ODOT did change the speed limit. We do have to be kind of careful with how many requests we send them each year because they really only have 1 or 2 staff working on this. So we really prioritize locations where we feel like we have a good chance of success for getting the speed limit changed.
So Logan, real quick, how do we that good chance of getting the speed limit changed? Is that something that community members can kind of like ask for us to request that, or is that like a
I can explain
database?
The process more.
Yeah, like how do we decide which streets we ask ODOT to look at?
Well, I mean, so the methodology that ODOT uses is available to us, and so we know the criteria by which they're going to evaluate a street. In the case of Fox Hollow, we actually had the benefit of having the staff person who does the investigations for ODOT come down here, ride around with us and talk through us which of our ideal locations would be probably going through if we submitted the requests. So that was helpful. But mostly it's our traffic engineer kind of looking at things like, you know, the number of driveways, like looking at any speed and volume data we have on file, things of that nature to, you know, commercial versus residential development, to try kind of getting a sense for whether a speed limit request might or might not go through.
So Dan, it sounds like if you have a location or a road that you feel like should be reviewed, you can email one of us on the transportation planning team. And we can sort of elevate it to our folks and they can take a look at it and see if they think it would qualify for being requested for ODOT. Sounds like that's a decent path forward, sure. Happy you're
Great.
excited about the decreased speed limit, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to Sharon Kaplan. Sharon, you should be able to unmute yourself. Oh, sorry, Sharon, hang on a sec, I accidentally removed you. Okay, now you should be able to go.
How about that?
That's good.
Okay, so my name is Sharon Kaplan and I live in the East Skinner Butte Historic District and I work on campus and I bike. And so I've got a couple of questions about a couple of intersections that don't seem to favor pedestrians or bikes. And then also some questions about the connections from the riverfront neighborhood on the bike path spitting out onto High Street. So I'll start with the first one. That's about when you're going down Oak Street, on the west side of Oak Street at like 6th and 7th, those lights tend to block pedestrians from going, even when I think there's no one that can turn in your direction. So I would love if someone could review those intersections and see if there's anything that can be done just to make it a little more fluid for people who are walking in that neighborhood. I think there's a left turn only lane, maybe at 7th, and maybe that's part of what blocks the traffic, but it seems like it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. And my other question then is about coming from the 5th Street extension at the riverfront, turning onto High Street. So I generally turn right to go home, and there's you have to kind of go onto the sidewalk and then take a sharp left and then take a sharp right, and there's cars parked there. I'm wondering what's the plan for that? And then going left, you'd have to cross and connect to the new bike path that you're building. And so I would love to see that connection safer and better marked and easier to turn onto also, because there's a lot of sharp angles. And then also I spoke to Shane Rhodes last week and he said that the railroad track crossing with the new neighborhood is going to be fixed. So if you're going down Alder Street connecting through the new neighborhood area where the railroad tracks are, that's going to be easier. Right now, that's a mess for bikes too. But I trust that that's being worked on. So I'm more interested about the High Street connection.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
This is Shane, and I can say that, yeah, I think both the High Street 5th and the 6th and Hilliard are part of the railroad quiet zone, and so it sort of depends on when that starts moving again, and I don't have any information on when that is actually moving. I think that it sounds like there's momentum again at ODOT Rail, which was a sort of a block at one point, and so from the last I heard was that we should be getting into more design now, so that build could happen next year, but it could be the year after, I'm not sure. But it sounds like the railroad quiet zone is back in the works. And both of those should be fixed as part of that, making sure that the bicycle pedestrian connections are better. And the Hilliard one is the southern portion of the riverfront development. And that's that hole where the new parking lot is being built and the new paths go down and connect. So that is getting better now, but then is also has other changes that are gonna be needed when the railroad quiet zone gets fixed. And then I don't know if I have the Oak and 6th and 7th. I know that we've talked with the traffic operations team about the crossing for pedestrians at Oak and 7th, trying to make improvements there. And we've talked about a potential of doing a pilot of there's a double right turn lane onto 7th from Oak. And we've talked about that potential of looking at changing that. And so I think there's still internal staff discussions about that.
So Sharon, I think to answer some of your questions just succinctly, all the things you brought up are on the city's radar, especially those railroad crossings. And once the railroad quiet zone starts to go through, there'll be updates in our In Motion newsletter, on our social media, and we'll also probably bring that to ATC. So if you keep an eye on our agendas or anything like that, you'll start to see those plans coming through, and that'll be an opportunity to kind of, have some ability to engage with us on those plans. As far as crossing 6 and 7, 6 and 7 are both identified in the transportation system plan as needing work, especially the pedestrian crossings. So similarly, once we get around to working on those, there'll be information that comes out and we can sort of engage in the public process. So thank you for flagging them, because the more we hear about them, kind of higher up they can go in the prioritization.
And Sharon, I'm apparently a neighbor of yours, so you can believe me, I'll let them hear about it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Okay, we're going to move on to folks who are here in person for public comment. It looks like both Josh and Noah would like to speak. Connie, you came in before you're able to sign this. Do you want to speak tonight? No, and then you came in as well. Are you hoping to speak tonight?
That's right.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, let's start with Josh.
Hello, everyone. My name's Josh Krasinski. I live in Ward 1. Many of you know me from my time on the committee. I was here from 2018 to the end of last year. I'm here today to let you know about my new position at the University of Oregon. I am now the transportation planner for the university. Yes, it is a new position. We haven't had a specific transportation planner before. So I'm excited about new opportunities to engage with the city and other partners, as well as to work internally to address some transportation planning things. We've kind of let lie. Our long-range transportation plan is from 1973. I'm very excited that we're going to be engaging in a transportation master planning process beginning this fall. And so I'll definitely send information Willow's way, and she can let you guys know about engagement opportunities for that. Also this fall, we're probably kicking off a schematic design for 13th Avenue from Agate Street to Kincaid. So that'll be a major change for a transportation corridor on campus. And then finally, we will be rehiring for my old position, the active transportation coordinator. So we'll have a deeper bench for active transportation stuff all over campus. So pay attention. I'll let Willow know when that job's posted. And if you guys have friends or even you're interested in applying, that position will hopefully be posted either later this month or early October. So I left some of my cards on the table here. So if anybody wants to get in contact with me about transportation stuff, I'm available. Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah Burdell. I live in Eugene in Ward 1, downtown neighborhood. I have something to bring to the committee that I'm not sure is within your purview or not, but I discussed it with member Mary, and she thought it was worth bringing up. Background. I'm going to make my opinionated statement that I hope is uncontroversial, that I think it is significant and valuable for citizens to be able to access City Hall. I'm on the downtown neighborhood committee, steering committee, and we had our mayor Lucy Dennis come and speak to us last month, I think, And I asked her about. In light of eWeb, the new city hall being significantly far from the center of downtown, kind of feeling sort of out of the way, that the city try to put some effort into making sure that it is as inviting as possible to pedestrians, bicyclists, transit riders, providing wayfinding and so forth. Her response, I want to make clear that I am not upset with the mayor about her response, but it made me aware of some mindsets that I think might be out there. She told me three things about access, like non-car access to eWeb. One is that it's about a 5-minute walk from the downtown transit center. That's probably technically true
Yeah.
that humans have run the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's about 20 minutes for an average health. She told me that the bike system up there is excellent, and that's definitely a matter of opinion, but I think as someone who uses bicycles as transportation rather than recreation, that the Ruth Bascom system is definitely a recreational trail. You certainly can use it to move around. But the fact, for instance, that on Google Maps, every branch of it is called the Ruth Bascom Bike Trail means that wayfinding is rather difficult. And then finally, as far as transit, she told me that she had spoken with someone from LTD who was saying that they really wanted to get a bus stop in there. I look forward to that. Currently, the transit option for getting to eWeb, if you're coming from this side of the river, is to take the bus to the other side of the river and walk back across the bridge. That's how far the closest stop is. So, in light of all that, I suspect that the mayor and probably many city council members, probably the city manager, may not actually really be aware of what the experience of accessing that site is for non-drivers. And I would like to request the committee to request the city council and the mayor and the city manager to each of them individually make one trip to and from eWeb by any method other than private car. By bicycle, by bus, by foot, maybe even by lift. I think there's an argument to be had that that is a way of doing it. And maybe report back to us. How did it go? That's my request. I don't know if this is really within the purview of this committee to ask for that, but I wanted to kind of get the idea out.
Thank you, Noah. Thanks, Noah. Thank you, Noah.
I have a suggestion for you, Noah.
Yes.
Go in front of city council at a city council meeting and make that exact argument.
Okay.
Because that's a way to put them right on the spot, all of them at once, right there, and citizens going and talking to them about access that's a good way to get everyone's attention at once.
Okay.
And let the new mayor candidate know as well.
Probably a better avenue than this committee is.
Yeah.
Well, I think bringing it here is also.
Bringing it
great,
here is good.
But that would be like in addition
Yeah.
to what you
I
said
was
tonight.
gonna say that we could make it an agenda item because all of us would want to. make
We'd
sure
all
there
wanna
was
go to city
access
council.
There. So we could make it an agenda item for us to talk about, like, who do you talk to about that, and then kind of join your effort. So
Yeah.
I propose we make it an agenda item.
We're also running kind of a little bit behind.
Not today, not
Schedule,
tonight,
yeah,
yeah.
but I think we should move on, but, yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
Jody's gonna talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
If it's okay to talk about it later during your
Yeah.
spiel.
Yeah, if you're here until we're towards the end, I'm gonna cover a plan that's coming up that will address.
And like, it's staff internally, our team has also talked about being worried about access to that location for bike ped and transit, so there's some conversation happening as well. Yeah.
Okay, is that all?
I believe that's all public comment. Anybody else? Yeah, I think we're set with public comment.
Well, thank you. That was interesting public comment. Okay, the next item on the agenda is we have two sets of meeting notes to approve or to review and approve. So first for the June 2023 minutes or notes. Is anybody got any corrections or comments or anything? And if not, we'd like to move to approve.
Move to approve.
Second,
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, and anyone opposed? No abstaining? Okay, and then on to the July ones. So. Same thing, anybody, any comments, corrections, questions? Henry moves, really second. Discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, good work. That gained us a few minutes there. Okay, welcome, Josh, and see you came in there, okay. So on to the path striping plan, I think that's.
That is me.
All right, Shane, give me just 1 second to get all the screen share stuff going so that the online folks can see
Okay.
too. Okay. All right, I think we can be set.
You wanna advance me to the right spot?
There we go.
Okay. All right, so I've come to you before to talk a little bit about path etiquette. We did a whole project last year that started the path etiquette campaign and even worked on it the year before that a little bit. And this towards the end of last year, we got some permanent signs in. We also had the wayfinding that went in last year as part of the Oregon 22, like making sure that we got the pedestrian wayfinding in. And so we had pedestrian wayfinding in, we have previous wayfinding signs, and we have these path etiquette signs that we started out as a temporary project doing yard signs, made sure our messaging was good. And then Parks did an install of some permanent signage. And what I wanted to report to you today is sort of the next steps and what we're planning. And basically, Annie Price, an intern of ours, has been working on a striping and signage plan. And so I wanted to report back about sort of what work she did. She would be here to present to you about it because she's been working on it the most. But she's working with Cycle Oregon and so and she's been here before, maybe talking about some of these things.
Yeah, she presented right before, if you all remember, she presented right before she started this study, kind of laying out what her
Your
plan was.
Yeah.
And getting input. So now Shane's kind of here to share like what she found.
All right, next one. And so what we're going to talk about is, what she found on initial conditions and then the goals of that says 3 tools, but we've broken them into 4 tools. So we're talking about path etiquette signs. This is all fitting under a path etiquette umbrella, trying to improve the safety and comfort of users on our path network. But within that, beyond the path etiquette signs, we're also looking at wayfinding signs, connector signs, which are all those street signs, and striping. And so there'll be some official recommendations and then some next steps. And so, this is sort of where we've been as a continuation of the path etiquette project. We've seen what gaps we have. We had gaps before, we filled some of those, but we know there's still a lot more gaps to fill. And this is because of our goal of a desire to increase active transportation and safety. So some of this fits into the safety and the path etiquette piece, but we're also including that, like what will make it easier for people to use our shared use path network. And, as we've heard from you and through the Move Huge process, connector signs and wayfinding signs that let people know, like, this actually connects to a street, and if you're on the street, this is how you get to the path. And then making a plan for those improvements, and that includes looking at how much would it cost for doing everything, how much would it cost for doing high priority areas, and how do we prioritize those, and then how much would that cost for each of those sort of different levels. So existing conditions, this is just to talk about, where we were before with a lot of signs in the parks that were really poor, and then new signs that we've installed. And the goal of the Path Etiquette Project is to encourage safe behavior from all path users. Those who are walking, those who are riding bikes, riding e-bikes, and just establishing that etiquette culture, both through behavior change and education, but also through design changes. And then, indicate where that the special increased attention is needed from users by putting signs not everywhere, but where they really need to be. We're not going to put keep a dog on leash, all throughout the system, but like, near the dog parks and where we know there's heavy usage. Or we're not going to put striping, on the whole path yet. But certainly in areas where there's congestion, blind curves, blind corners, those kinds of things. So like, where is increased attention needed, and highlighting those areas. So we had some of that we had to go out and see what the existing conditions were. In 2022, Parks installed 37 of these path etiquette signs. And we did a bunch of outreach. And so now that's the existing condition now, is those signs are in. Some of them are already ready for cleanup, and because they've been spray painted or vandalized or bent. But that's what was in there in 2022. The next. On the wayfinding signs, go back real quick just to highlight that I'm going to talk about wayfinding as far as directional signs, which are these style on the left, and action signs, and those are different than the street or path connector signs. Okay. The existing conditions are that we have approximately 397 wayfinding signs total out in our community that we have in our system, GIS system, and we've confirmed that 114 of those are on the path network. And so that's work that Annie did to actually go out and confirm our existing inventory, and that what we say we have. And so that's been updated, which is a good process to do. And these help people know where destinations are and confirm a user's location. And then these are the connector signs. So connector signs are those signs that tell you, if you turn off of this path, this is the street that you're going to connect to. I really, this is a important piece that we've heard, and that I know we're really interested in getting more of them out there. So these are the existing conditions, is that we only have 40 connector signs on our paths, which we have a lot of paths and we have a lot of connections. So we know that's a very small amount. A lot of a good chunk of those went in with the Fern Ridge path, and that was part of the West MX project. And so we try to do these as part of projects. So that one put in I think almost 20 or 25 of those went in on West MX. So a lot of them you'll see on the Fern Ridge path, but on our existing path network, like the with Bascom Riverfront path or Amazon path, you don't see as many, and there are large gaps. Okay, next. And then striping, we've heard from ATC and from community members that people generally like the striping. When we started this talking about striping many years ago, there were definitely a lot of people who didn't want striping on our paths. And we heard when we put in some striping from some people that they don't like the feel of it. They don't like that it makes it feel like a road instead of a quiet, nice path in the woods. And but that's definitely, now that we've done this and we have more data on people's feedback in it and gone through the Move Huge process, what we're hearing is that overwhelming support for striping. We also had concerns from parks before about putting in striping. Now they're more on board. So that's been an evolution. I think there's still people who don't love it. But we think it has a lot more benefits than it does drawbacks around safety and sort of this. It fits in really well with our path etiquette. When we say stay to the right, it's really clear what the right side is when there's striping there. And so we have existing conditions of, we've added center lines in the past, but it's pretty minimal. Been focused on curves and underpasses, they're wearing off in locations. And so there's this new desire to stripe more sections. So we really want to incorporate safety and sharing into the design where we put them, especially high congestion points, blind corners, dangerous passing areas. Okay, next section. So we have a whole Google map and layer in GIS that is looking at where the existing infrastructure is of wayfinding signs, path etiquette signs, connector signs, and striping here, the 28 sections of striping. And next. And so we have recommendations on where to fill in the gaps. And to let you know that how we came about that up with these, I'm going to talk about in just a minute. So we are looking at a phase 2 of our 2022 recommendations of path etiquette signs, extension of striping as part of that path etiquette. So just to give a ballpark figure, if we were to fill in the gaps and use our phase 2 recommendations for path etiquette signage, they're about $312 a sign, that's $7,200. Not a huge deal. That phase is going to be pretty easy, and we'll be able to get those up soon. Next. Wayfinding and connectors. These are mostly street connector signs. There's some wayfinding maps that would be at sort of the entrance and exits of paths, so like the headwaters or main entry points for paths. But that would be part of our pedestrian wayfinding project. They would look and feel, they would look like our wayfinding maps. Does everyone know what those are that you've seen them in the community? Now they're the pedestrian scale wayfinding signs around downtown.
Yes.
So as you're walking around downtown, look for those in their little map. Oh, sorry, first one on the screen. That's what the map looks like. They're actually smaller signs as well. So that would be that. And then we're looking at 55 different locations for these connector signs. So it would more than double what we have. And those are about $400 for $2,000. And so we're looking at placing those probably in the spring of next year.
Does that price include installation or is it just for the
Yes.
sign? Okay.
All right. And then striping, fan favorite, blind curves, congested areas, intersections. We're looking at also doing something that I don't know if we've talked about here before, but pairing these with shark teeth, which are, you can't see it very well, but it's the yield sign, where paths connect. And to make it clear, what is sort of the main line and what is a connector path and who should be yielding. And so we're talking about putting those in several locations, like if you're on the Amazon path and there's these paths that are coming in, like here's the main line and these paths should yield. If you know around the dog park and skate park, like making sure that little zigzag, this is the main path and you're coming in from something else, you yield. So like making that really clear with striping. And then running that striping all the way through that so that you have a solid yellow line that says this is a no passing zone and sort of stay in your lane. So that's a little bit more expensive than the other ones, but we're looking at about 17,660 feet of striping at about 25,000. This is very early numbers. And this one we're looking again to do in the spring and just looking to refine it a little bit more. We just want to let you know sort of where we are in this process and how we got there. So let's go ahead one more. Oh, and there's some funding in here as well for replacement of, as I said, vandalism signs that just need love. in striping and signage, so refreshing some of those stripes and signage. I think just really quick on this is an important part because this is what we heard from parks and concerns from traffic maintenance in general is, yeah, you can put all this in, but then you're gonna need to pay to keep it up. And it, you know, it's clearly true, like we have all these signs that we just put out that we already have to are paying for to upkeep. So anything we put out, we have to factor in all the expense to replace them as well. So it's not just a one-time cost. So this is how we came about. This is the process that Annie did a ton of work on, actually going out in the field. She got some help from a couple other interns on doing the survey 1, 2, 3, and actually going out with like pinpointing where things were, GIS, and putting it into our system. We got feedback from you, from the Move Huge process, and then we went through a path priority ranking where we actually took information on equity, median income, availability of car, condition of the sign, of the pathway, whatever data that we had, usage rates in that area, and created a scoring based on that. And then created a prioritized list of which projects should we would recommend. And yeah, and so just at a high level, it was really interesting looking at those numbers of income and vehicle access and condition, density of existing, that this is how the priority came out as far as the top sections. Amazon for the path etiquette, signage, Amazon Beltline Ruth Bascom for striping, Amazon Beltline Ruth Bascom, and wayfinding, Amazon Roosevelt and Ruth Bascom. So some of you might be saying, Amazon, that's a very, you know, the southern part of Eugene, how does that, when you look at equity, come up higher? And I think that what we saw is that with students and just the income level mixed in there, that the income and low car ownership and, you know, high usage already, like these are congested areas that need help. Those are the sections that rose to the top when using these numbers. And so that's what we're gonna look at, is putting them in those locations where we see the high density of users. We know that there's a need, and we're gonna prioritize projects based on that. And so that doesn't mean that we're not gonna do anything on the I-5 path, or, you know, the Beltline comes up for striping, but we'll probably do some path etiquette and some wayfinding in those locations as well. But this is a first phase, and so this is where we feel like it's going to be most effective. And this is where we're looking to actually put in some of this first phase signage and striping. I think there's one more, maybe. Yeah, so we're looking for your input. And I don't have the list of the exact ones because that's still sort of like Logan's project. It's still in flux. But you know, I wanted to bring sort of what Annie has gotten us to now, and that I can share with you a map once we're done of actually, like, to show you where the striping would actually be laid from which section to which section. And get down into the weeds of that if you really want it. But this is more of like, you know, how are we doing? Are we on the right track? You know, feedback up to this point. And then when Annie's back, she'll be working on finishing up. She's with us for another month or two. And she's going to finish a complete plan that we'll have, that it will actually lay out the exact locations and sort of our next steps for this phase. And then the next sort of future phase. Oh, and I just want to say on the funding piece, we have identified some potential funding for this first phase already from some magic money that Rob has. Rob's magic money. And that I think there was some COVID relief funds that this fits into that the city has. But the phase after this would be a much larger one, and we're not sure where that would fit in yet. So that's sort of one of the questions that we are hoping to answer for the next, before we finish the plan. So that's all I have.
So that first phase was the 22 signs, the 55 signs, and then the like 3 miles of striping.
The signs, the striping was already in, there was already some striping down that Parks had put in, and then so we put in the 22 signs. And did a lot of community engagement, so we did a whole series of yard signs, and then the permanent signs. That was sort of phase one, was the yard signs, the permanent signs, and the outreach.
What kind of input exactly are you looking for this project?
I guess to make sure that we're on the right track, that we've heard that striping is important, and we've heard that certainly we've heard from ATC on the verbiage and the messaging, and we made changes to that, and just to make sure that we're still on track. And like, even if you have like, I want to make sure that this section is on there, or I've seen a lot of issues in this area, or
Yeah, I ride the Fern Ridge path quite frequently, and sometimes I see issues with people just sitting on the path instead of walking or biking, so there's no movement there. So I was wondering what kind of signage could be used to address speed limits or minimum speed. So they're like they're sitting on their bikes or
People sleep.
No,
They
just
hang
hanging
out.
out.
Yeah,
They
right.
hang out.
sleeping
Sleeping.
under a bridge.
On that.
Got it.
On the path.
So,
Yeah, Andrew.
yeah, I just had a couple things. So when Annie came to talk to us, it was great to hear all of her ideas and stuff. And I had some, because I had just been to New Zealand and there were a couple things there that were awesome. And so, and I took pictures, I sent them to Rob, he liked them. And also we talked about it a little bit. And also I sent them to Annie. And some of the things, for example, like this issue with hazards and stuff on the path, like they had some signage and some additional things that told you like how to report things, and so a lot of times people don't know how to report. And sometimes there'll be glass, like often on Fern Ridge and stuff, and often on Fern Ridge. And that's super bad. And it takes a while for it to be cleaned up by Parks and Rec when they do their sweep. So they had like signs that actually had that kind of thing. Another thing was they did a lot of their signage on the pavement. So they did pavement paving instead of spending a bunch of money on signs. And it might be less, I love the idea of the yielding. thing.
Yeah, I think that's where that came from with
Yeah.
your comments, and I think, I don't know, go one more and see if no, okay, so go back, and go. Oh, yeah, that is that one, no, I guess we didn't make it onto here. We did have a slide in one of our presentations about about a pilot project that we're thinking of doing.
Yeah.
With just making stencils and spray painting some messaging. And we are planning that is part of the plan.
Good,
So
good,
I missed
yeah.
that, because that wasn't
Good, no,
on
no,
a
no.
slide.
'Cause it was
but we have
inexpensive,
some, yeah.
Yeah, it's inexpensive. And also for me, I mean, I'm usually looking forward and like, I'm not necessarily looking to my right or left or whatever. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's really helpful to have it right there.
Yeah, thanks
So,
for bringing
yeah.
that up again.
Well, I'm very excited that we're doing all this. I've had a few comments lately from older folks who live around Marist, in that area, and they complain a lot about speeding on the bike path. They ride bikes but they see a lot of speeding, and they say there aren't any signs out there. And as I was listening to, the criteria of usage, which is really, really, really important, there is a case to be made that in an area of lower usage, one of the reasons it's lower usage is because it isn't safe.
Mm.
And so one drives the other. So, especially in an area like that where there's a lot of older folks living who would ride the bike path, but they don't feel safe because there's people speeding around. And they're all actually riding e-bikes themselves.
Right. No, and that actually is
So
a
it's-
good point, because I don't know if we captured City across the school or schools? Or, you know, like other, like older, you know, like,
Areas of town where there's more older folks.
yeah,
Living.
yeah,
I mean, that's a high income neighborhood that, you know, those folks would ride bikes, but they don't feel comfortable. So just a thought.
Okay, yeah, we're a little over time, Jerry, just real quick.
Oh, Mary, you have yours up?
Mary had yours.
Oh, Mary.
Oh, I was just gonna say that, sort of the opposite of what Julie just said, is that the Amazon path, you know, needing the wayfinding, and it just strikes me that it's because it's a really good path and
Yeah.
it's so well used and that's why it needs it, you know, and so I guess it's just interesting, you know, to me, and that, so I think it's gonna be like a model for what we need everywhere. But it is, yeah, there is that equity concern, but I also think you gotta make that good because people are using it. But I just noticed that, you know, that the infrastructure drives that, what's driving usage, and then it drives the need for more, and so it's just a noticing. And not to neglect the
No,
areas
no.
that, yeah,
I ride Amazon. I'm thrilled that we're doing it.
yeah, me too.
This is super quick, but your example of where you might use the sharp teeth and the yield sign on the pavement. Agree with Andrea's point there of Amazon path, right where the skate park and dog park meet is a perfect example because
Yeah.
that is the quintessential spot where that's a problem. And if you go there at 7:30 AM any weekday, or, you know, between 3 and 5:30 PM any weekday, it's just accidents waiting to happen. You know, people don't know how to yield, where to yield. And so I can really see how that's gonna be a huge help.
yeah, and there are definitely other locations that we looked at that were like, oh, yeah, that was really up there. Fern Ridge and then in the river path, yeah,
Okay, thanks, Shane.
great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yay.
Yeah. So we have general support is what it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
General support.
Keep it
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the review prioritization.
You want to start with the PDF or?
Yeah, do you want me to like drive, or can I like tell you when to scroll?
Sure.
Either option?
Yeah, you can tell me when to scroll. Hopefully I can kind of tell by based on what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, so to start, I'll go ahead and say that I think this is gonna be more of a discussion than a presentation. I had wanted to pull together some slides, but we were so busy doing the spreadsheet work on the bond proposal, we didn't have time. So to start with some background, I know most of you are familiar to a certain degree. But this Move Huge process we've been talking about is largely about deciding how we're going to spend some of the transportation bond funding that was approved last November by voters. So to refresh your memory, the bond funding included 5 million for walking projects, 3 million for biking projects, 3 million for safety, and 2 million for kind of a flexible, unprogrammed category that could go to any of the three above that I just listed. We did a lot of community engagement to help inform our proposal. We collected, I think, 1,300 project ideas and safety comments from community members, reviewed them all. And also took a look at, you know, projects that we had already identified in our TSP, projects that we had in our existing traffic calming eligibility list. And from those sources ended up scoring approximately 630 projects. Now from there, you know, all of those 630 projects were obviously not going to fit within the amount of funding that we had. So we kind of took another round of review. We found that a lot, unfortunately, of the highest scoring projects were cost prohibitive for us to do. As you can imagine, for things like protected bike lanes are extremely expensive, especially on like our high volume arterials where we were scoring a lot of them. You know, we scored a few roundabouts, those were also generally cost prohibitive. So we eliminated some for that reason. We then also had to eliminate more, you know, some of them we had constructability concerns about the amount of right of way we had at the location, things of that nature. So from that point, we've kind of filtered it down to, after many iterations of the proposal, you know, in the ballpark of 50 something projects. And so I wanna be transparent that we're supposed to send this off to be put into the city council packet tomorrow morning. We're meeting with city council on September 25th, to do a work session with them on what's in the proposal. So at this point, we're like really kind of narrowing in on what the plan is. And then based on the feedback that council gives us on the 25th, we might go back, make adjustments, and then the intention is to have a second session with them in October to really like at that point say, yes, this is the final version. Go and do these projects. So what you're seeing here on this first page here is kind of a summary of how the projects are broken out by ward. You know, the voter bond was obviously a citywide initiative. And there was a certain desire to make sure all of the wards were getting a certain degree of investment. You know, our scoring process for the projects looked at safety variables, looked at equity variables, and looked at travel demand variables. So we never expected everything to be perfectly even from the start, because we know there are certainly parts of town that are currently underserved and we're working to get back up to speed. So this is kind of the breakdown here. You can see that a lot is going towards Ward 8 in particular, and there's a couple of wards here that are getting a little bit less, but still getting a decent amount of investment. So from here, Willow, if you want to scroll down, this table here, we can take a pause. This is just kind of showing that, yes, the proposal that we put forth is fully spending out our PED fund, our bike fund, and our safety fund. The flexible fund there, remember the one that I said could go to any of the above categories. We don't specifically have to report to city council what we use that for, but staff intention is to use that flexible $2 million to stack onto the paving projects that were identified in the bond. The locations have been locked in for those at the time that voters approved the bond. And so that gives us some kind of flexible funding to add on safety improvements to those paving projects, because we know that there's a certain amount of efficiency. If we're already going out there and we're paving, like that's a great opportunity to put crossings in if those are appropriate locations to do so, or traffic calming, or some type of bicycle facility improvement, depending on the location. So we have some funding to stack onto the paving projects. Also, some of that flexible 2 million is going to be useful for providing us matching funds for safety grants. So we have some flexibility with that there too. Willow, do you want to scroll down some more? And past this, I kind of want to go, so this project list is just showing all of the projects mixed together, but Willow, if you keep scrolling down, you're going to hit a point, yes, where we're breaking it out by ward. I found that this is generally more digestible for people. And I don't know how familiar everyone is with the various city council wards. So I don't know, Willow, it might make sense if we like flip back and forth where like we show the city council ward map that I linked in my email, and then we flip back to look at the chart. Thank you. So as you, yeah. So as folks can see on the screen here, Ward 1 is that kind of tealish shape there in the center. So we flip back to project list. You can see some of the projects we have flagged for this ward. Definitely a mix of bike, ped, and safety projects. Those undercrossing, and we're not obviously going to talk about each of the 50 projects individually, but this is me just kind of giving you guys some information on some of what's going into the bond proposal. I'll flag for you that those Fern Ridge Path undercrossing improvements that you see there, I know undercrossing improvement is kind of vague. What we're talking about there is we're talking about improvements to lighting the Fern Ridge Path undercrossings. We heard a lot of comments from folks saying like, hey, like I can't really see very well into the undercrossing, before I get into it. And then there's someone there who's either sitting or sleeping or, some other type of, perhaps there's like debris in the underpass. So one of the things we bundled in at a few locations is lighting improvements in the underpasses. As you can see down there on the last line item in this chart, there are some traffic calming projects that are labeled speed feedback. What we're talking about with projects like that are speed feedback signs. So having those signs that show like the variable messaging where like you drive by, it shows how fast you're driving in comparison to the speed limit. So that's something we're considering for some locations. I think I had gotten one question in an email about traffic calming being included in the proposal. And I will go ahead and point out that I believe all of the traffic calming projects are currently programmed to the safety category in here. So, you know, city council's intention has always been for the way we spend the bond to be multimodal in nature. So having some traffic calming in there is a good way to mix in some projects that expand, you know, it certainly traffic calming benefits people who are walking and biking, but also it has that safety benefit for people who are driving. You'll also see some street lighting improvements as we move down the list that also help with that a bit.
Can
And
you speak to neighborhood greenway and what you are referring to there?
yeah, so the neighborhood greenways that you see on our project list, you're gonna see improvements like speed humps or speed cushions to help slow cars down, sharrows, enhanced wayfinding signage, things of that nature, just to help make those routes more bikeable. You know, and those are generally gonna be on lower volume, lower speed streets. You'll see some of these sort of asterisks at the bottom of the charts. Some of the projects do run through multiple wards or border multiple wards. So that's just a way to show the city councilors like what portion of that project is serving their ward. Willa, do you want to pull up the ward map and we can look at where Ward 2 is before we kind of get into that piece? Yeah, and you're all welcome to interrupt me if anyone has questions as we go. Like I said, I kind of envision this being more of a discussion and presentation.
It's kind of south TV.
Okay, as long as you're, second question.
Sure.
On the undercrossing thing, is there any way to get rid of the mud, you know, after it rains and it floods and it's really slick with mud? Is there anything that can be done about that?
You know, with the amount of funding that we have scoped for those projects, no, I think that would be pretty limited to the lighting improvement. If we were going to do something related, because I think the mud comes in with when the water comes into the underpass. And if we were going to do anything about that, I think that would be like a significantly more expensive change to make at the underpasses. And I think that's beyond what we're going to be able to achieve with the bond funding. But it is something that I know we talked about in the process. Like I said, you know, we talked about 630 something projects after talking about 1,300 community comments. And so I know that there were definitely other folks who flagged that, and it's something that's on our radar. I don't think it's something that we're going to address with this funding, but keep in mind, this funding is not the end all be all universe of what we're going to do over the next several years. There are other, you know, paths for us to pursue for funding for improvements. Yeah.
Can I
Sure.
ask one question here, while we're on Ward 2, just on behalf of one of my colleagues on the STEM Neighborhood Association Transportation Committee, she asked about, and I wondered if this might be due to those flexible funds you were talking about, where the cost might not show up, or it might not add up exactly, but she said the summary tab has the Ward 2 total being 2.5 million. 2.53, but on the Ward 2 tab, the total project costs are 1.3 million. Is this, you know, what would be the cause or reason for that?
So I would need to take a look at the iteration of the spreadsheet I sent out to you all, which is at this point outdated in comparison to what you're looking at up here.
Okay.
So you know,
I think, Logan, I think it might have been the SDCs.
that
'cause you
could
were
be it.
showing-
At that point in time, we had been.
The
we had
SDCs
been
were in
showing
that
the
spreadsheet.
SDCs.
So I
Yeah.
think what happened was the like Ward 2 total was showing just the bond funding,
Uh-huh.
but then that Ward 2 total on the
Yeah.
summary page included the SDCs for total investment into the ward.
That's a
And
good.
an SDC is a system development charge.
Wow.
So it's like money that our team has access to for projects that are kind of used to sort of match or elevate a project's ability to be funded?
Yes, so thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
So now that you're saying that, the version of the spreadsheet that I sent out to you all, it didn't just have the estimated project costs. It had the estimated project costs, the amount of system development charges that we could mix in. So that's like extra funding that we want to mix with some of the projects.
Got it.
And then, which is not, the STP we can't use for all the projects, but we can use for some of them.
Mhm.
And then a whole additional column that shows, well, after you take the SDCs out, how much of the project cost is left in. That is gonna come out of the bond. So perhaps she was like pulling one of the, and not recognizing that difference, taking a look at the totals between them.
That makes sense.
The SDCs are nice because it kind of is a way to use the bond money to go even further by pairing it with additional funding.
Yeah. So looking at some of the projects in Ward 2, can see we once again have a mix of pedestrian, bicycle, and safety improvements.
Can I
And-
ask about
Sure.
about Tugman? Yeah, because what are you planning for the rehabilitation for the path? Because I know they're kind of like, people don't sometimes understand that it's a shared use path at that point, and there's no
Mhm.
bike lane, so.
Yeah, so most of the things you see labeled as path rehabilitation in this spreadsheet, like really the core of it is like pavement rehabilitation. So if there's an area where like the pavement's degraded and cracked and we want to be able to go and fix it, but we don't really have a great sustainable funding source right now for shared use path maintenance. Performing that repair work is something we would do with this. But really, we can be kind of flexible in what we use the path rehabilitation funds for. Like if we, we're doing that rehabilitation and then had some money left over, who's to say we couldn't add in some signage or things of that nature.
Will
but
they be
really,
widened?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Will they be widened?
No,
okay.
it wouldn't be widened.
Okay.
It would largely be for repair work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Logan, just, it looks like on a lot of the traffic calming, you're talking about speed feedback. Is there data? Does that work?
It does. It has a degree of difference that is probably not as high as speed humps and speed cushions, but there are types of locations where we would not build speed humps or speed cushions. And so speed feedback signs are an alternative that would be more appropriate for those locations, because we're not going to build speed humps on an arterial, for example. Like they're not designed to take the speed of, a lot of our arterials. We also don't build speed humps or speed cushions, which for anyone who doesn't know, those are like the engineering terms for what most people would call speed bumps. We also wouldn't build them on streets with more than 8% of a grade to them, because we wouldn't be able to get a snow plow to get up and over that speed hump if we ever did need to plow that street for whatever reason. It certainly doesn't apply to a lot of locations, but it does to some. So in areas like that, if we know we want to put in traffic calming, a speed feedback sign is really like our option. I see you have your thing. Yeah.
I have a question, yeah. I live on Harris Street and we recently were moved from Ward 3 to Ward 2. Is that right, Connie?
Yeah.
And I'm not, and so we're now Ward 2. And there, the intersection of 29th and Harris is going to be redone in the bond. That's in the bond measure, and it's right next to a school. It's right next to the brand new school that's being built. How do we know? I mean, there's nothing on there that talks about pedestrian crossings or lights or speeding or any other things. How would we find out what is included in that project as far as the road bond money, and if the safety improvements that are necessary for that, it being a school?
So
How do I, how do the neighbors
Yeah.
elevate that to being part of the discretionary fund?
So the discretionary funds, we're not going to program right now. We just have this kind of general concept of these are for improving the safety of the pavement projects. And at a later interval, we would identify what we're gonna spend that on. Probably after we get this list approved by city council, and then we move into the phase, like after we get the list approved by city council, we're gonna be working with our project team of engineers to start like planning out the details of which paving projects are being constructed which years, and then like building out the scopes a bit more with the discretionary funds. So that would be a good interval. I suppose, I mean, I don't want to commit Reed to coming, here, he's off on, he's taking a vacation. Starting today, but yeah, I can say that speaking for Reed, I think that he or Catherine would be happy to come back here and give you all an update with what the discretionary funding is scoped for. But I don't think that we are going to program that until probably, I don't know, a few months down the line.
Okay, so is there somebody else in here who can say, who do you go to find out what is actually in the road bond project? If it's listed, I know it's listed, but it does, it just says.
For the pavement projects.
Yes.
So not for these, but for the pavement projects,
Yes.
that is like the amount that was approved in the bond is just paving. It's paving, and sometimes we have to do curb. Sometimes we have to do curb work when we do
Okay.
paving projects, if there's an ADA requirement that's triggered.
Okay.
But other than that, don't assume anything else is going
Okay.
into it. That's gonna be on the back end, Reed and Catherine, and maybe me using the discretionary funds to pack in additional safety elements.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Just a time check. We got about 3 more minutes. I don't think we're gonna make it through all the words.
Let's move along. Kind of scrolling down, you can kind of get a sense of some of what's in here. Yeah.
Can you send this to us?
Yes, I can send you, so I'm gonna have an updated version tomorrow morning. I can send you the updated version tomorrow
Okay.
morning. But kind of, Will, I don't know if you want to keep on scrolling down. Ward 3 doesn't have much, because they are, we have our Franklin Boulevard project coming up, and so that's why they weren't prioritized quite as much as some other wards. Scrolling down, we have a protected bike lane project scope for Cal Young, which we're hoping to pair with some grant funding. We'd like to put in a grant application to try getting protected bike lanes on Willa Kenzie. So if we get that
Good.
funding, it would pair nicely together. Scrolling along, Ward 5, we have a bit of funding scope for Hunziker, which is a county street, but we're working on a project there because we feel like it has great safety benefits. And then we want to do a jurisdictional transfer after we complete the project, where it's transferred from Lane County to us. Ward 6 here, we have a few projects, including, so that sidewalk project there at the top is probably going to be one of the changes I make tomorrow morning, so you might not see it there in the updated version. But we do have a good amount of funding scope for Ward 6. Ward 7, we have quite a few projects, and if you're seeing projects pop up on multiple charts, keep in mind that some of the projects are running through multiple wards, so that's why you're seeing it come up at multiple points. The Division Avenue project you see up there, that's also match funding for the safety grant. So we have a $6 million grant for roundabouts and protected bike facilities on Division Avenue and pedestrian crossing improvements. So we need some match funding for that grant. River Road street lighting, we know City Council has a really strong interest in street lighting, so we packaged in a few street lighting projects to help with conditions there. And then going down to Ward 8, you'll see some more Fern Ridge Path improvements pop up. You see the undercrossing improvement there. That is just like the other ones, lighting improvements in the underpass.
I was wondering what you have in the City View one, because that's that funky one where, the path is, the
Yes.
path moves.
Yeah, so City View has two improvements scoped in here. One is the neighborhood greenway, so we're gonna build traffic calming on City View, probably put some sharrows out there. Probably put some wayfinding out there. And then the crossing improvement that you see in there, the actual crossing itself, what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to raise the crossing. So drivers have to slow down before they hit it. And then have, because it's got that, like you said, it has that awkward skew. What we want to do is we want to have like a short two-way protected bike facility to get people like across. And then connect them into the crosswalk. Maybe we have a bike walk there too. For them to get over from the side of from the two-way facility over to the other side of the crossing and then continue along the path.
Does that mean like making the sidewalk kind of like a bike lane?
I think we could keep the sidewalk.
Okay.
So is that like the same that's over on, is it Bailey Hill Road?
It would. I don't think so. No, so we would have probably like curb, we would have, since there's that place that area where it's skewed. Like you would be riding on the path, come up to where you hit City View. Get in a very short two-way protected bike facility, and this is all raised, so drivers are slowing down. In addition to the other traffic calming that we're doing, like across all of City View up to 18th. And then when you get to the other crosswalk to connect to the other side of the path, you would get out of the short two-way protected bike facility and cross there. Are there any other questions about specific projects you're seeing here? I know, oh, go ahead.
In general, is there a, I know you have a title for each project type. Is there a key to definitions of those project types in this document?
There is not, I feel like. Aside from the undercrossing improvements, you'll find that a lot of it. Well, let me say this, I can create one and I can put it in the email. How about that?
Great.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So this is what's gonna go to city council, is that right?
Yeah, I need to make a couple more changes,
Okay.
tomorrow morning.
I thought they were going to be like, you could pick this one or this one.
So what we found, initially, we had been wanting to have multiple iterations, for them to have a choice between.
Uh-huh.
And then direction came through from leadership that it was probably better to have like a consolidated
Right.
proposal,
I
like
get
this is
that.
our staff recommendation. It sounds like, and this is not 100% right now, but it sounds like we may be having, it before or after the council work session on the 25th. If there are counselors who would like to have, one-on-one meeting, well, I say one-on-one, one on me, Reed, and Rob probably. To like comb through this in greater detail and talk about whether like there are things that if there are specific projects that they have concerns about. Or if there were things that they had been expecting to see that they're not seeing, we
Right.
can talk at that interval about whether any changes are made to the project list.
Mhm.
So that's the direction we're going in versus having those multiple
That
iterations.
seems wise, yeah. Now that you see that, what the
It's
list
a-
looks like.
it's a lot.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
No, so- I've got kind of a general question. So you mentioned earlier that given the funding, there were some cost prohibitive projects. I'm sort of curious if you have like a strategy, given that you kind of reduced those projects. Now you've got this remaining budget. So is there a plan that ties these projects and some of the other efforts together?
So is your question really about, are we gonna be able to circle back and tackle some of the cost prohibitive projects?
I guess it's related to that. It's also that like, if you've got a little bit of money for a lot of projects, sort of. How do those meld coming back with the bigger, the more expensive projects?
I see what you're saying. Well, the more expensive projects that were determined to be cost prohibitive. It's not as though we're not going to ever construct them, but we have to kind of play whack-a-mole with the funding to a certain degree. A lot of those are gonna be there's this grant opportunity that comes up and it's a good fit for this project. And we know that this is a good project that will have great benefits. Plugging those into those funding opportunities, which is something that has to take place over an extended period of time, So I think that these projects, I mean, there's nothing in here that will prohibit us from doing those projects down the line. But I also want to recognize that, getting back to some of those larger projects, there are some projects that were, over $10 million. It's gonna be probably like a phased approach over a very long period of time for us to get there. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah. that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Okay, so there's obviously a lot more talking and work to be done about this, both for us and for staff and for council, so. This will be an ongoing discussion, I think, for a while.
Yeah, and I will go ahead just to kind of like add one more thought on that perhaps I should have started with. But yeah, like this process has been very like iterative, and like I said, tomorrow morning, there's supposed to be a new version of this. It won't be dramatically different, but it will be somewhat different. You know, if you have an interest in sharing this information with others, I would probably recommend holding off until the city council packet comes out. With kind of like the information that's gonna be shown to counselors on the 25th. And I can make sure Willow has that, and is able to share that.
So is that the one you have to have turned in by tomorrow?
Yeah, they should be the same, but I think, just kind of in an effort to keep, you know, things as consistent as possible with like me showing you something and then you turning around and if you want to share it with other folks, you know, and you want to provide them with information in case they have any interest in emailing their city councilor. Just like probably giving it some time until the city council packet comes out and that information is like officially like on our website, super public, if that makes sense.
Lucy's idea of a key, I think, would be a good addition.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you, Logan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. That's a
Yeah, I
ton
know,
of
I'm
work.
sorry. I know that's a lot of information to blast you with.
But it's well presented, so yeah.
Okay, so we're a little bit behind, but you get your 5 minutes and we'll figure it out somehow. So at 6:53, I guess, we'll be back in.
All right. So Danny, are you a friend of Mount here?
Yeah, we went out there a couple years ago and stayed at French Glen and did some birding and
Yeah,
supported the thing.
yeah. I'm just going out there on And then we start, talking about how do we get the safety of people, and then we go to read and say, how do we, what do we do, how do we do this? So the first thing is when, so.
Is Jody here?
She stepped out for a sec.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is to meet someone who was here a little bit ago.
I don't know. Oh, she's probably in the restroom while she
She
gets
is.
back.
Yeah.
I can go into some of our updates
Yeah, that'd be
just
good.
because then I can
Yeah.
loop back around. So I think on the updates, I've got the Beam Bright Parade, not Beam. Beam. People keep thinking I'm saying Beam. So the Beam Bright Parade is coming on October 14th. It's a Saturday night and it's a night parade that is human powered and electric only. And it's going to be going on this big route through downtown Eugene. It hits 8th Avenue, it hits 5th Street. Well, I guess it's 5th Avenue, but 5th Street Market, and then it goes through High. And it's really exciting and it's gonna be super fun. And a lot of different people are submitting float ideas that are bike oriented and walk oriented. And Jeanette wanted me to tell the ATC that she would love it if you all were interested in volunteering, not to necessarily lead a float, but just to be part of the scene. So there's people who are gonna be doing like traffic orienting and helping people stay on the route and stuff like that. That could be really fun for the ATC to be involved in. I think like me and Logan, a lot of the staff will be there too, doing that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in volunteering, Jeanette's gonna send a follow-up email to the ATC listserv where you could sign up and let her know that you're interested in volunteering.
What's the time of it?
What's the
What
date
time?
again?
October 14th, it's Saturday evening, and I think the time is like evening, 5 p.m. Well, it has to be dark and it'll be October, so maybe 7-ish
Yeah, okay.
would be my guess.
And actually tomorrow evening, there's supposed to be something going on at Mecca about,
Mhm.
I don't know quite what.
Like how to get lit up, because they'll have
Decorate
free
your
LED
country or
lights and
whatever,
stuff.
so-
Yeah.
So I'm sure Jeanette will be there at least. And
Yeah.
So quick question, is this something that's suitable for a child to take on, to ride with I have a kid who just
Yeah.
loves to ride at night with his bike lights on,
Mhm.
with his wheel lights. It's
Definitely
really-
suitable.
Heck, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's-
it's okay for me to, tell his parents that I'm kidnapping this child and taking.
Definitely, yeah, it's a slow route. It's gonna be very family friendly and oriented. It's a night ride, but it's very lit up.
He was.
The route is totally closed to people driving,
Oh,
so it's
even
like a bike and walk and electric only. So there might be like an electric car or two, but they're gonna be afloat. So they'll move really slowly.
So can anyone just ride along, or do you have to like register as a parade member? How does that
I
work?
think you have to register, is that right?
That's my recollection.
Yeah, I think if you
Okay.
want to be in the parade, you have to register, but there's a small fee for being like an individual. And then if you wanted to get it's like open to anyone, so if anybody wanted to get like a group of friends together and all line up and sign up, there's also,
Class.
yeah, there's also like a single fee for a group. So any group that's like, we just want to do it, they could just pay the single fee and all go on a bike ride together, so that's an option as well. Jody, let's pass it over to you.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
So
sounds
are
great.
are we going on the bike ride? Is this? Or- okay. Hey, everybody, I'm Jody Trudler. I've been sitting here next to Logan tonight, and I'm just here to introduce myself tonight, but I did make slides so that you can have something to look at the whole time I'm speaking. So I started in July with the Public Works Department. I'm a senior transportation planner, so I'll be working on Team Logan, Willow, Shane, Reed, Rob, the whole crew. Very excited to be here. I'm originally from Eugene, so I'm back in my hometown, ready to get to work. And most recently, I was working for Metro in Seattle, so I came from the transit side of the house. Now I'm at the city, so I get to kind of hopefully help bridge that here in Eugene. And before King County Metro, I was working as a consultant, so I worked on a lot of projects, multimodal and transit both. So have some experience with some of the more like street level design work. This is just a fun picture from earlier this week. I went on a walk audit hosted by the AARP that was downtown. And you can see our mayor, a little, should I turn the lights off?
You can if you want, yeah. If folks want to see the picture.
On the picture that we got to meet this muralist, and so some of the work I'll be working on will be pedestrian issues, sidewalk issues. So this was kind of relevant to help me gather and just kind of meet with people. Here we go, thank you. So what I'll be working on, I'm sorry our commenter left, but maybe he's tuning in. So one of the plans and projects I'll be hoping to launch this fall will be a downtown transit and shared mobility plan. And one of the really key questions is going to be that new riverfront neighborhood and the eWeb building, the new city hall. How do we make sure that there's transit access? So I don't think the current transit plan is what you'll see by the time we move in to eWeb. Hopefully we'll have some other options and a way to get people to city hall without having to drive. And to that person who commented that, I think there's also, like you said, Willow, there's interest in walking and biking. And one of the things we'll be looking at too is shared mobility. How can we use like our bike share, our e-scooters to kind of help people bridge the gap from downtown to the downtown riverfront. Also be working on climate friendly and equitable communities implementation. That's the kind of landmark rules coming down from the state level. And so I'll be working on the transportation elements that relate to Eugene. I have a lot to learn about that. I've been reading a lot of websites and diving into that. I'll be working really closely with our community development group on that. Something that I know this group is interested in, be helping work on a sidewalk program. So yay! Thank you for your help so far. I've been reading that and discussing with Willow, and I've been doing a lot of research along with one of our interns, Sierra. Recently, we're making some calls to some of the places that you recommended looking into, just kind of looking at the different funding models in particular to see what alternatives or what kind of other options we have for the city. I think probably most of the people in this room know that the current system is that property owners are really on the hook for maintenance or infill costs because they're by city code responsible for the sidewalk. So we're just looking at other options that seems like under the current scheme that's not really resulting in a lot of sidewalk maintenance and infill being constructed. Also hoping to kind of partner with Logan and with the whole Move Huge team to kind of see how we can integrate our work together. The list keeps growing. Every time I meet with Rob, there's maybe another. So that's with the and more. Another thing that I think there's been some previous planning work done here around transportation demand management growth strategy and looking at how to help employers with their commuters, for example. So I know we have some recommendations that have been sitting and we'll be reopening those and seeing what's next. Then, so for the sidewalk program, I thought I'd share some of my initial thinking and what I'm hearing as our goals. I think what I'm hearing is we need to be building priority sidewalks, like the infill of sidewalks. And I noticed a lot of those on the Move Huge list. So places where maybe there's already a sidewalk network, but there's gaps. So that's going to be a big goal. Want to make sure people can walk to access schools, bus stops, parks, those important places. And we're going to need to look at how we prioritize projects. So I've been kind of looking at the Move Huge methodology, and we'll certainly be fleshing this out in the future. But initial thinking is we'll want to focus on safety, we'll want to focus on equity, and we'll want to focus on those important network gaps when looking at infill, because infill is rather expensive. A little bit more affordable can be some of the maintenance and repair. Sometimes it's just smaller. So we want to also look into a stable funding option for maintaining our existing sidewalk network. And what that looks like, we shall see. Where we're headed. And that's my short spiel. If anyone has questions about those, I don't know how much time we have, Willow, but and I'm sorry that the gentleman left because we could talk more about downtown things.
Okay, thanks. I'm just saying, when Mary and I met with Willow prior to this meeting, pretty much every idea we came up or every topic we came up with, oh yeah, Jody's gonna be working. That's gonna fall that this new planner.
That's why I got here. There's already a to-do list. It's like 10 projects on.
Wow. Can I ask Jody a quick? So I have a really quick sidewalk suggestion that is not infrastructure. one of the things that actually impedes people walking and biking is the number of cars parked across driveways and across the sidewalks. And especially now that the kids are coming back to college, as I rode here, I saw at least 12 vehicles with out-of-state plates parked across sidewalks, just on the bike path from here to here. And it would be great if the city could print up a nice card that we could pop underneath people's windshield wipers that cited the law, and also just pointed out that it impedes people who are in wheelchairs, people pushing strollers, people walkers, because this is not a crime. These are just people who really don't ever know that actually people use the sidewalks for walking on. So it would be an education, it's an education piece. So it would be great if we could have something semi-official that is not a ticket, but also puts the fine, should they get ticketed, which they won't, but.
Okay, that's a good suggestion, and just to make sure I'm understanding, you mean like people kind of like hanging out of their drive, like the back end of the car. hanging in the
Yes.
drive.
They park right, they've
Park
got
there,
one
okay.
car on
Yeah.
there, they've got one car in front of their house on there, on the piece that's by their
Yeah.
yard.
Yeah,
And then the second car is right across the sidewalk, right oftentimes to the street. So you'd have to actually go around somebody else's driveway and into the street and all around in your wheelchair, pushing your small child,
Mhm.
it's really dangerous behavior, and they have no idea that they're doing it. They're clueless. I don't have time to stop and knock on every door and say, excuse me, but so just putting something underneath the windshield wiper would be such a low tech, cheap thing to do, but it needs to have a City of Eugene logo and a did you know and a fine at the bottom, so they go, ooh, okay,
yeah.
thank you. Fixed.
I totally second that. But it's not to say anything extra then. I agree completely.
Okay.
Thank you,
Um,
Jody. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm looking to hear about that.
Super happy. Oh, and I'll leave some cards up front. I saw that. So that's
Good.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
if I don't get
Yeah.
Lydia Nelson.
All right.
Thanks
Hey,
so much.
Jody, where's my
I
nice
actually
card?
got a concussion this summer. It's awesome.
Okay, so that takes us to our subcommittee discussion. And
Okay.
I think Mary's gonna lead that. You remember that when July-ish,
Yeah.
thing, we kind of said, yeah, we need to kind of revisit what we're doing with subcommittees. And so your leadership team met, and I'll let Mary take it from there.
Yeah, so remember we were doing things whole group, but it wasn't very whole group, and so we're going back to what worked better last year, which is actual subcommittees with a topic. And so I was kind of thinking about what are our subcommittees important? And I just, the thing I see with subcommittees is that they really drive deeper conversations about things. And so you can go deeper into things and you can actually converse, because here it's a lot of presentation. So there's not so much time and ability to converse about things. It's a way to bring new ideas. People say, well, what if I have an idea? Where can I bring that? That the subcommittee is a really good place to do that, as well as sometimes here, as an APC agenda. And also it helps generate agenda items here. So we want these meetings to be really pertinent and something that people are engaged in and want to work on. And so it helps to kind of get that, like, oh, let's take that to the group, and let's take that to the subcommittees, and let's take that to the group, and let's take that, gives that sort of a cycle of information. So we said, well, if we're doing that, we thought 2 subcommittees instead of, we tried 3 last year, but we're doing 2 subcommittees, and 2 topics that we came up with are Move Huge. So looking at, Logan's presentation, and even though it's like in the city council's hands, and we do want to take a deeper look at that and see if we have further recommendations, or if we have things that we think need work, even to refer to individuals on the ATC to advocate or things like that. So we just feel like there's a lot there, and it's a really important thing for the city. So we thought that could be one. And then the other one we are proposing is a sidewalk strategy. So, like kind of keep going on that and pushing. Now that Jody's here, hopefully there'll be some actual continuity But we really, it's just kind of has been a problem without a solution for a long, long time. And so we're proposing that. Now, those are the two, Move Huge and Sidewalk Strategy. But if somebody had something, but I really, really, really want to work on this, you could say, how about this, propose another topic. And the other thing you could do is like, okay, we're on the Sidewalk Strategy Committee, but let's also work on this topic. We're also interested in this. You could add things to your plate if you are on a committee. So I'd like some feedback, I guess, about that, about the topics, Sue, or.
Yeah, we got a little dictatorial about saying, okay, these are the two committees we're gonna have, just because we didn't want to spend months
Yeah.
fishing around for topics and what we're looking, we're hoping that these two committees, and they can get rolling and get into action right away, so that we could have something done like by the end of the year, or in case of Move Huge by October, when it has to be approved, so that's why we just decided we're doing these topics.
Yeah, and that was meeting with Misty and Charlotte, to make those choices. So we'll just have a minute if there's any discussion, and then we'd like to just break into the two groups and you just self-select. Sue is going to be the initial facilitator, at least for the Move Huge, and I'm going to be the initial facilitator for the Sidewalk Strategy. And what we're going to do is get in our groups and decide on a meeting time and place. And you could decide to meet virtually if that suits your members better of the subcommittee. So that's our goal, is to have everybody pick one and then get together in your group and come up with a time and place.
And I guess we'll have to contact people who are not participating.
Yeah. So is there any discussion before we break up into groups, or, yeah?
What's the kind of plan for the Move Huge, like after October? Is there like ongoing interaction with the projects? What's the vision there?
I don't know. Will there be something, Logan, after October?
So we're supposed to have the list approved no later than November 1st. At that point in time, like I said, there's gonna be some work with the engineers to schedule out which projects are happening which years. And then I don't know how long you guys would want the work group or the subcommittee to stay active. But as we get closer to actually building the projects, we're gonna have to go through the whole design process, community engagement for the projects, so on and so forth. So I don't know, hypothetically, if you guys kept the subcommittee going, perhaps you could weigh in on the actual design of the project as it gets closer.
Yeah. So I think the subcommittee could kind of determine, the depth and the length of the project.
That subcommittee does feel like a little bit like the infrastructure subcommittee that existed before.
Yeah.
So there could be an opportunity for it to sort of start as Move Huge and move into kind of that, just like looking at the infrastructure projects and making sure that we're getting sufficient feedback.
That's a good idea, actually.
Projects, and then once the Move Huge projects come into that design phase, it kind of can move back into being, Move Huge oriented.
Yeah, it could be infrastructure / Move Huge, really, because that was an important group last year, the infrastructure group. Yeah. Any other discussion? Are you guys okay with this? Yeah, okay.
And actually, if somebody's got lots of time, there's no reason you couldn't be on both subcommittees, but it's sort of guessing that won't work for.
Yeah. Okay, so if you would like to be on the Move Huge / infrastructure committee, you can go over there with Sue, and then the Sidewalk Strategy can be down here, and come up, bring your devices that tell you when you're available. So you can put 5 minutes for that. What kind of division we come up with?
No, I came up for a second. I was like, oh no, I'm embarrassed. Put that back up. That is my all-time favorite show. I'm not the opinion that it's the cutest TV show that's ever.
You like Legend of Korra? I love Legend.
Yeah, also.
Because you actually not, I mean, you have to get somebody else to drive, you know, trying to say, you're pushing something. You've got to find and there's somebody on there.
Okay, friends, here we go. So,
Yeah, she wants to say time is here.
do we want to stick to a Thursday?
It could be another meeting, but I don't do stepping up and fill it in.
No, Thursdays are.
Yeah, I usually try to
Actually.
block off
house, so,
Thursdays.
Next Thursday. I'm the land judge. My turn.
We'll milk it for everything you're worth.
But I still want to work on 5
Yeah,
days,
good.
I think I will, you know.
Yeah, and Andrea. I'm over to
In December? Are you sure? We can run for 3 years.
No, it's 2 years, this is my second term.
Right, so 2 years to term.
2 years, 2 terms, yeah,
Okay,
couple years.
then I'm done.
4 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can do it, yeah.
We joined right in academia.
So we'll take it while we have you.
But I mean, yeah, Thursdays are okay, I think if I. I have a 4 o'clock meeting that is at 5:30. So that was my thing, it's just, it needs to be at 5:45. I just.
Okay.
Yeah.
We would like launch into.
But we need to hear from them.
It was worthwhile.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was with actually the best table at the Springfield Block Party, which was great. And it made me think, we have to do something like that in Eugene again. You know, it'd be really fun
That was
to have a
really-
Sunday street. I mean, it was just
That was
nice.
amazing. Well attended.
It was really great. It was a really nice thing.
And I wanted to add, there's, I don't know if I'm allowed to like plug a certain shop or whatever, but there's a community bike shop in town that has volunteer opportunities. They're usually from 12 to 3 or 3 to 6. So if you have time and you want to volunteer at a bike shop, yeah, sign up. I've been going and it's really fun.
What would that entail? Is he?
So they have opportunities to volunteer as a mechanic and also as just like organizing within the shop. So you can like, you know, fold bike cubes and put them away. That's one of the jobs.
Which
I
shop
did.
is it?
Shift Community Cycles. Yeah.
They want volunteer mechanics to be like well experienced as mechanics, like this mechanics.
I'll let them answer that question, but I had limited experience. I've built a bike before and they have staff mechanics that can help guide you through questions and things like that. So,
I would guess they would be willing to teach you if anything you needed to learn.
One of my friends asked about that and they said they would teach.
good, good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Shift is really cool. They've kind of
Yeah.
taken over for folks who've been in town a long time. CAT used to be
Yeah.
in town as a Center for Appropriate Transport. They dissolved and Shift has kind of stepped in as a nonprofit bike shop, which makes me like, you can't plug it because they're not a for-profit bike shop. They run as a nonprofit and they've got a mission. They're 501c3. So they do a ton of stuff.
Yeah, they really.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
impressive.
that'd be very active. That's fun.
All right, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here.
I missed the finale of the.
I realized, I think I have-